Look, I think the story of the morning is what happened with Walmart's basket size. I was reading the guidance from Brett Biggs, and you saw this transactions came down from, the pandemic stock up, but the basket size was up a meaningful amount. And what that tells me is Walmart is excelling in fashion, excelling in home, excelling in general merchandise, and adding those bigger ticket items to blend in with their grocery and CPG business. So I think there's a ton of momentum here. And, I think the street was not sure what was going to happen this year. Home Depot, huge quarter, but priced in. Walmart, you see the pop. And I think people don't realize how good Walmart's getting at the non-grocery parts of the assortment.
In terms of that basket size, whether it is Walmart or I know this came up in Macy's results this morning as well, the stimulus, the impact of those direct checks that Americans have gotten, once again, how much of that is, affecting retail sales and the results of these companies? Is it a sugar high? How sustainable are these numbers longer term?
I think it's huge. I think it's huge what the American government did because, some of the folks that are concerned the size of the stimulus is too big, I think are far away from the lived experience of people, in poor folks in America, middle-class folks in America. And so what we're seeing is that stimulus is going to enable people to continue to invest in their standard of living during what's been a crazy time. So I see it as not a sugar high, but something that helped people endure during difficult times. And hopefully now as people get back to work, particularly in industries that were really affected, we can keep the momentum as an economy.
It almost seems like there's this barbell strategy emerging within retail right now, at least on something like, for example, the apparel side of things, where you have a lot of companies that are doubling down. And I think Walmart could probably fit in this bucket right alongside Target and some others that are doubling down on their own store brand labels. And then on the other side, you sort of have this explosion of new kind of next generation brands that maybe started as direct to consumer and e-commerce, but are now expanding their brick and mortar footprints as well. How does the retail landscape now shape up post-pandemic? Who are the winners and losers?
So I think it's strength in proprietary brands, right? If you're selling brands that are everywhere, including on Amazon and others, it's sort of a race to the bottom. And the truth is that a lot of those brands don't love those channels, particularly the challenges of working with Amazon as a vendor. And so I think where you see Walmart winning is look at Free Assembly, one of their new proprietary brands, what they did with Scoop, which has a storied history here in New York, what they're doing with Eloquy Elements, an awesome plus-size collection. The new leadership there is really focusing on brands that Amazon doesn't have, brands that other folks don't have. And then you throw in, I don't know if you noticed, Walmart's acquisition of a fit technology company, Zekit, out of Israel, and you can see they're really playing offense with doing things that their competitors can't because it's proprietary.
Mentioned the fintech efforts, and it sort of reminds me of other things we've heard in the past, say, 6 to 12 months about advertising, media. We still haven't forgotten the TikTok episode. I mean, what do you think the ambitions are there, ex-store, right, in both advertising, media, and fintech?
I mean, look, I think the move there is partly just to learn, right? When you think about that minority investment in TikTok, just having, Doug McMillon in the mix, having the board of Walmart, understanding what's happening with the big social player, and then pushing those learnings down. I think it's the kind of move you wouldn't have anticipated. But then, when you saw the chess move in India with Flipkart, and I mean, look at the e-commerce growth internationally, it's making these smart digital bets. And I think with TikTok, it's not just about buying or investing in e-commerce companies, it's understanding the social trends that are influencing consumer behavior and consumer spend.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.